And rolling. Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of EFL Teacher Talk with Sean G. I am Sean Gallagher, your host, today on November 10th, 2018. And today we are going to talk about skills that will get you hired as an EFL teacher. This is in response to Casey on the YouTube channel, on the EFL Teacher Talk YouTube channel. Thank you, Casey, for your question. And I thought it was a good point. You know, Casey asked, "Hey, Sean, what are you looking for when you're hiring a teacher?" And I thought to myself, I love this question. This is an excellent question. So I thought about it a lot. I came up with 10 points over here. And actually, I had a lot more than 10, but I boiled it down to 10. And I thought I would make a video about the things that I look for whenever I am hiring. And I guess maybe just before we get started, you should remember that I think what I'm looking for when I'm hiring a teacher is probably going to be a little bit different than a different school. Like, let's say if you want to work at a big chain school or something like this, maybe they don't want you to have all of these things, right? Maybe being able to follow rules and follow the directions and everything is much more important over there than the stuff over here. But anyway, so in my case, I am the owner, co-owner and the manager of the school. We're a very kind of results-based school. We're a skills-based school. We have pretty high-quality lessons. So that's where we operate, and these are the kind of teachers that I'm looking for. So let's get started. The number one thing I look for when I'm hiring a teacher, I try to screen. I actually have questions that I use to specifically screen for this, is I need teachers with some humility. I need a teacher to work at my school who doesn't think that they know everything already, who thinks that there might be something about their teaching that can be improved. So I understand that that's kind of like a really big general concept, but it's actually a huge point when we have teachers that don't work out here. Like if we ever have to, fire people and things like that, it's usually because lack of humility. So I think having a healthy dose of humility is really, really important if you want to work for me at my school, because at my school, we're always improving, and you kind of have to have the mindset that you're not perfect if you're going to improve. So anyway, humility is number one. Number two, I think skills that I wish teachers have, and I think that most good teachers do have, is, good teachers, they're able to adjust their teaching level to the student. They view the students as individuals. It's not this monolithic class or anything. They realize they're a bunch of different little, humans that they're teaching to. If you're teaching kids, if they're adults, they're maybe not so little. But anyway, so adjusting your teaching to your student, and basically this means that you have empathy. You can understand if the student is confused or if they're getting it or not. This is kind of the basis of teaching. It should kind of go without saying, but you really need to be able to empathize with your student and to try to help them understand what you're trying to get them to see. So I think number three, another skill that I love when I have teachers working for me, is that the great teachers, the best teachers I have, they're always very proactive in seeking out advice. Maybe it's from me, maybe it's from other teachers in the school, but usually the teachers who are really good are the teachers that always go out and they're looking to improve. So they're seeking out advice from other people who might have some more experience in whatever area that is that they're trying to improve. So usually that's like a huge positive whenever I'm doing interviews, or maybe early when you're just beginning to work with a teacher. Whenever a teacher goes out and it actively kind of seeks out advice, really impresses me, and it's something I love to see in the teachers that are working for us. Number four, skills that I wish teachers knew more about before they started working here, because I have to spend some of my time, kind of retraining people all the time, is just the differences between child-centered learning techniques and perhaps we should say student-centered learning techniques, because we're not all working in EFL, early education EFL, but so for those of you who are teaching adults, I think you should still be using student-centered teaching techniques. And there are also definitely times when you should probably be using teacher-centered teaching techniques. They're two different things, and it seems like sometimes you should use one and sometimes you should use, I think they both have their different strengths and differences. I could actually probably make a whole video on that alone, which actually there was a suggestion for a video to be made on that alone. Maybe that's the next one. But anyway, number 4, if a teacher has a good understanding of student-centered teaching tactics versus teacher-centered, and when it's appropriate to use both of those, I love that. It makes my job a lot easier. I have to spend a lot less time training people. It's awesome. Number 5, if teachers understand the basic concepts, this is kind of classroom management now, right? The basic concepts of using a serial process or a batch process. Now, what I mean by a serial process is, let's say you're doing your warm-up in your class and you're asking for kids' names. I think a lot of teachers do this in a very serial format where they're going from the teacher to a student, teacher to a student, teacher to a student, It's one person gets to respond at one time. So it's very serious, it's very linear in the way that you're managing the class at that time. Whereas something, a batch process might be an activity where everybody can join in at the same time. A lot of times I'll do my colors activity like this. I might review the colors real quick, blah, 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 blah. And then I'll say, okay, hey, what color do you think this is? And, oh, yellow. Okay, yeah, it's yellow. Now everybody go touch yellow. And now all the kids are running around in the class touching yellow and screaming yellow, yellow, or, yellow paper, yellow pencil, yellow book, or something like that. That's a great example of a batch process. So if a teacher can understand the differences between those two things, a serial process and a batch process, and again, I think they both have their strengths and weaknesses, and I think there are times when we can use both of those effectively. I think they're both tools that an effective EFL teacher needs to understand. Number 6, I think the good teachers that work for me, they have this sense of they can look at each student and see if they're on task or if they're off task. Now, off task just means they're kind of not using their time effectively in class. They're staring at the ceiling, they're, playing with their pencil, or maybe they're just making it look, we have a couple kids who I had a discussion just right now with one of our teachers here. We have a couple very clever kids who kind of make it look like they're with the class and they're on task, but actually they're kind of not. They're just kind of, gelling, not doing anything. So, yeah, if teachers know how to keep most of their kids on task most of the time, then that is wonderful. I think that's going to lead to excellent results in the classroom. I think the kids are going to be engaged. Parents are going to be happy. We're going to get good results that we can go brag to. We can go brag to the parents about it. Oh, hey, your student is doing this and that. So just being able to effectively manage your on-task, time ratio of, your kids in your class. So that's one thing. Number 7, I think, if you know how to manage L1 usage in your classroom. In an EFL classroom in Japan, obviously L1 is Japanese. So if you know how to effectively manage your students' use of Japanese in your class, you're at a huge advantage. And again, this is something, if you already know how to do this when you come work for me, I'm just very, very happy because, again, not everybody understands this, and it takes time to train people how to do it. It's of critical importance in an EFL class that the teacher actively manages the language that's being used in class. Like, you are the conductor in the class, right? And if you're not noticing things. It seems like the biggest problem that we have with this is obviously I think most teachers are good about not allowing kids or students to speak to them directly into Japanese. I think most people know to block for that. But sometimes kids might be mumbling under their breaths or repeating stuff, talking to themselves in Japanese. It's almost like a habit, a soothing habit that they have for themselves. You really need to get in and just stop that, right? They just need to either be speaking in English or be quiet. That's really what I'm looking for in the classroom when people are managing L1 classroom usage. Again, I won't get into the details of that. I think there are times in class when you should probably maybe speak some Japanese. I actually do use Japanese in my class very, very occasionally, very, very sparingly, but I do. So it's not this like 100%, oh, you can never speak Japanese in class. So it's kind of a fine line. So people who know how to manage their kids' classroom language use in class, love them. Always very happy to work with those people. Number 8, another skill that will get you hired is if you understand the concept of emotional positioning. Now, emotional positioning, again, this is from my friend Scott Crow out in Osaka. He kind of coined this phrase. But emotional positioning is maybe creating a situation in the classroom where the students want to communicate with you, and you're also giving them the tools in English, the language in English, for them to do that to you. Now, I've seen Scott do this, my friend Scott. He has these stories that he tells, and there's this bee that comes into the room and, it lands, next to this boy, and the kids are all, shouting, oh, look out, it's a bee, it's on the chair. I know that in my classrooms, I use a lot of humor. I use a lot of false answers. Today in class, we go over some wall posters, and there was a poster of a bone for Magic E, and we go over it. Okay, oh, bone. And the kids repeat, oh, bone. Okay, bone, bone. Now, everybody, please say, I don't have a bone. And then the kids are like, I have a bone. You don't have a bone. So now they're kind of joking with me about this, right? So this is just an example of emotional positioning in your class, creating situations in your classroom where kids want to speak with you, where students want to communicate with you in English, and also making sure they have the tools to do that effectively. So if teachers know how to do that, again, you're going to see great results out of the program. You're going to have happy students. You're going to have happy parents, results to brag about. The marketing has already taken care of itself. So yeah, this is all good stuff. Number 9, if teachers, when they come in, if they understand the difference between kind of this general idea of phonics and then this much more kind of focused idea of synthetic phonics. I've also heard it called linguistic phonics. I think recently, so synthetic phonics is UK, linguistic phonics used to be US, now it's something else. I just looked it up, kind of forgot it. But synthetic phonics is in a synthetic phonics program. So for example, in a general phonics program, you might see something like when people go through the phonics cards, apple. I think a general phonics program might do this. In synthetic phonics, the synthetic phonics idea is that written text in the English language is a sound code. It replicates speech. So in order to learn the text and how to read it, how to decode it, and how to encode it when you're writing, there needs to be this, it all has to be sound based. So I think at my school, we never do apple. The ABC song is prohibited. Nope, don't do that here, please. Just because it interferes with the kids viewing an alphabet as a sound code. I mean, that's a battle that we fight day after day after day, because I think for most kids, it's definitely treated as this thing that, with letter names. So anyway, so if teachers come in and they already have an understanding of some of the general principles of synthetic phonics, they're way ahead on their training here. It's a lot easier for me to talk to people about our teaching program if they already understand what synthetic phonics are. And then number 10, another skill that will get you hired. This is the zone of proximal learning. This is a concept by, oh, it's a Russian guy, Lev Vygotsky. Did I do that right? Vygotsky. I think I got that. That's out of this book, by the way. So in the zone of proximal learning, Vygotsky is just saying that in order for a child to improve, to get better at something, in this case it would be language use, English language use, that the student needs to interact with somebody who's at a higher level than they are. But the level can't be way up here. So the zone of proximal learning says you do need to be of a higher, the child needs to interact with somebody of a higher level, but just by one step. You don't want to go 2 steps or 3 steps or 4 steps ahead. It just needs to be one little step ahead, and you start out, and the teacher starts operating in that zone, and pretty soon the students can also operate in that zone as well. So that's kind of it. So how did we do on time today? Okay, oh man, we're at 16 minutes. So that is my Christmas list. If somebody came in and they could do all these things, you get hired immediately at my school. So that's it. So those are my top 10 skills that will get you hired at my school. I think if you have a general understanding of these concepts, it's going to tremendously help your EFL career no matter where you go or where you teach. So yeah, I think it's definitely worth investing your time in learning about some of these concepts. If anybody is interested in a more detailed follow-up for any one of these points over here, please leave me a comment below, and I'd be happy to make a follow-up video. And yeah, it says I really believe in continuing education and people just kind of improving their game so we can go in and we can teach great classes, have our kids love coming to us, have happy parents. And yeah, it's just, and then when we do that, I think as teachers, obviously there's this emotional reward, right? This is great. You're teaching a child and they're learning it and things like that. So anyway, it's just part of this whole feedback that that we try to get going here. So that's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in again. And until next week, I hope you have a great week of classes. If anybody has any questions, comments on anything in this video, or if you'd like me to address another topic, please leave a comment below. Love to hear it. And that's it for this week. So signing off. Stop recording.